Hello, GenAI folks. Welcome to another episode. We are on episode 8 of the GenAI CIO Podcast. My name is Siva, founder of Lizer and co-host of GenAI Podcast. I also have Rishabh with me, who's the co-host, founder of GoML. And today we bring you 10 more updates from the world of generative AI. So again, we are sticking to our weekly commit, one episode every week, bringing you the best of the Gen AI news, generative AI news, for which will be useful from the applicability standpoint in the enterprise space. So first up, we have a fantastic. I think the CES happened early this month, and we have a lot of gadgets that were kind of introduced, and I think undoubtedly the one that caused most attention was this Rabbit R1, which is kind of an AI first device that they ended up launching at CES. We know Sam Altman is doing something with the iPhone designer. We know that Samsung and other companies are trying to do something. We know Apple recently fired their stopped Siri team altogether. I don't know if they fired the team. We know Apple is also taking it pretty seriously with their small language model. They even launched it as an open source recently. So, but Rabbit R1, I think, is the first multimodal device. We have Humane and Tab also, which are like more of a voice only device, but we have a pure handheld right now. So it's exciting. I've booked the device. They're gonna ship it in June. Let's see how it goes. But what does it do? Let me give a quick primer. You can, with press of a button, you can ask questions the way you ask Perplexity or ChatGPT today, and it'll research and answer you. It will. It's multimodal, so you can take the picture of your fridge or refrigerator and ask the model for cooking recipes, and it'll give you recipes. It can, just through voice, you can ask it to book a flight ticket for you or a plan a vacation for you. It'll interactively do. So it's voice, but it's multimodal, so it can also show things. It is powered by an app in the backend, which you'll have to log in using your laptop and connect the apps that, like if you have a Netflix username password, connect it. If you have a Expedia username password, connect it. So you can do that at the app level, but post that the device is on its own and you can just interact. So it's a pretty fun device. Also, if you see, they have push button, they have a scroller. It's kind of a bit fun as well. Music. I mean, you can connect Spotify and you can ask for music. You can interactively speak. There are a lot of comments saying, "Hey, why can't it be just an app on your iPhone? How is it very different?" Which is something that I started reading these comments after booking the device. So I'm kind of thinking, should I cancel it now? But anyway, that's what I see, Rishabh, with the R1, to be honest.
No, absolutely. Brilliant update, right, Shiva? And thanks for bringing this up, right? But just a couple of additions, right? As Shiva, you mentioned. See, one is, and you also mentioned CES, right? And going back to what happened at CES, they said it was mostly about wearables, right? How the technology is actually. So while it was not Gen AI in action, but mostly everything was powered by AI or ML to a certain extent, right? I think next year is when we'll see Gen AI in action or heavily at CES. But now, very interesting to see how this technology is actually powering wearables. Wearables are nothing new, right? Meta has attempted, Google has attempted, right? Apple is trying to attempt it, and so on and so forth, right? I think the most adapted wearable that you would have seen, at least for me, is a health tracker, which probably happens through an Apple Watch, right? And I won't say that I probably track it that actively, although I do, actively work out, but I don't think so. I still use it to that level, right? So, how the market gets shaped now across wearables with Gen AI coming to picture was the is something that we saw at CES, right? My favorites probably at CES, obviously one is Rabbit getting launched, right? And Shiva, I think one thing that would really help in this in adoption of Rabbit against Humane is the cost, right? I think Rabbit is priced at $199 and Humane is $699, right? Which is a huge
Yeah.
gap. Number two, I think what they've also mentioned is that Rabbit has its own OS, right? And it's powered as something called as language action model, which is nothing but a little different from the other technologies that actually leverage, inclusive services like APIs to integrate with apps and access the apps, right, across. What they are trying to do is it emulates how a human interacts with apps, right? Which is not through any API interaction, but how probably a human goes and, as you mentioned, like probably will go into an application, probably let's say make my trip, and then go and book a ticket, right? So they've actually emulated that through this lab, right? So that would be very interesting to see how that actually works out from the accuracy perspective. But other interesting, announcements from CES, like we saw, like a very interesting, demo, which was Gyro Glove, which helps Parkinson's, patients to probably move their hands better, right? This year, probably one of the most talked about ones was a ring that has been developed to track periods for women and then help them and probably plan for better. Non-intrusive devices
Nice.
like urine tract infection detector without obviously you to actually give a urine sample and so on and so forth, right? So very interesting announcements. Obviously rabbit remains to be the biggest. What would be interesting to see, as I mentioned, Shiva, is how the variables get changed, how well they get adapted with this technology now, right?
So interestingly, the model that they call is not a small language model. They call it as a small action model. That's the term that they come up with because they're saying it's multimodal in nature. It can do two things, three things together, etc. So it's a small language model. And interestingly, there is another open source community or a library called Open Interpreter by this developer called Killian, and he built this earlier model which can already work with your MacBooks, etc. So through chat, basically. So he and with the set of another open source enthusiasts, they're launching an open source version of Rabbit, which is something that kind of they've taken. They're trying to build and bring it to the market in a month or so. So I can only see a lot more things happening. They're calling it as something else, not small action model. They're calling it something else, but more and more such variations are coming in. IBM introduced this concept called SLM, which is small language model. Then Rabbit is introducing Rabbit OS, which is using SAM, a small action model. So yeah, I think Rishabh, it's time for us also to launch a model and call it a name, give it a name actually. So
On it, Shiva, on it. All right.
we'll do that.
So moving on to our
Next up.
next update, Shiva, probably one of the most awaited updates of 2024. I know we are only 2 weeks into 2024, but still making a lot of news. OpenAI has always been, right. So GPT store is finally up, and I think we in our last podcast we had shared this announcement that GPT-4 would go live, and 10th it eventually went live. We had also told our viewers how they can actually, or what are the requirements that they actually need to meet their GPTs that they're building to be able to launch on the store, right? Obviously, this is currently available to ChatGPT Plus users only yet, right? And the biggest change that they're trying to bring with GPT Store is that while custom GPTs were always still available through for the paid customers through the Explore tab, but with GPT Store, you'll now be able to monetize your custom GPTs.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I think the biggest news obviously is that since they went live, they have seen like close to 3 million plus custom GPTs launched, right? And these range from anywhere to a simple, GPT that just, probably answers Q&A, to a complex GPT like what Khan Academy has done, which is a, a complete understanding of a concept and a kind of a tutor agent, right? So it's not only individual developers who are developing, it's actually companies like or probably businesses also dabbling into this, right, to obviously increase adoption, right. Again, I was just going through this report. The biggest use cases seen across on GPT Store right now range across three areas, right? So one obviously is your generation use cases, but not your standard generation use cases like what mid journey and stable
Got
diffusion.
it.
Probably very specific domain specific, like interiors generation, right? When you use specifications.
Got it.
Number two is the Q&A chatbot, right? But again, this is more focused towards, more smaller action models, as you mentioned, the small language model, as you mentioned, right, Shiva? Probably, and I was going through this very interesting GPT where you actually have a GPT that will answer any questions on Marvel Comics, right? While GPT does that out of the box, obviously this one is much more accurate when it comes to the Marvel's world, right?
Yeah.
And the third one is the voice-based agents, right, which also saw a lot of adoption on the GPT side. So, and 3 million, which is actually something that even Apple Store did not have when they launched, right? So they're pretty big. The adoption seems to be really picking up. I think how now developers are able to monetize, how we get like more diversified GPTs is something that I'm really excited about.
2 million out of this 3 million would be the girlfriend
Oh yeah.
bot, I think. I mean, I see that in the news quite often.
In
So, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, in fact, thanks for bringing that up because there was a huge, cover story around this as well. That in the first 5 days of the launch, the most surged for, so one is built, the most surged
Hmm.
for GPTs were, as you just mentioned, girlfriend or companion GPTs, which to certain
Hmm.
extent is actually against, OpenAI's policy, because
Hmm.
they like as per the policy they do not support companionship type of bots, right? But that's the most searched in the first 5 days.
No, yeah, no, I think this is a request to all the users listening. $20 is not going to break the bank, and you don't have to kind of use it for the whole year. But I would say use it for the whole year. The GPT subscription. Sam Altman says, I mean, the value that you get from $20 is tremendous. He was saying that in a recent interview that he had with Bill Gates, right? Which I agree. I mean, the value is tremendous. We know that. The request I have for the listeners here of our podcast, please go and build your first GPT. It could be a simple GPT that you can build on your PDF document. You could build up for your credit card statement to analyze your credit card expenses. You can build it for your stock analysis. You can build it for, like Rishabh said, interior design. Build anything. Just go and build. You can even build your boyfriend, girlfriend GPTs as well. Just go and start building. I feel that GPTs are like your email. Each one of you should have, if not 5 or 10, at least one GPT which can do a task for you, which can free up some more time. Which is what even I think OpenAI guys are saying. Hey, you know what? With 10 or 15 GPTs that you would have built for yourself, you will be able to save time with each and every GPT that you build, which will automate a certain thing for you. You will be able to save time, and that's something that I would say. I would recommend all our viewers go start building your GPT. Look around you. Look at your daily calendar. See how you can save time and see how you can use that elsewhere with kids, with family, with on a hobby that you want, or just go and sleep. I mean, who cares? I mean, just go and sleep and take some good nap. So yes, GPTs are like the new emails. Please go and build one, have one. They are like your micro robots, automate tasks with GPTs, and yeah, I'm pretty excited with what GPT has in store. And imagine if you build a fantastic GPT and productionize it and launch it for people to use, you might even make some money actually. So go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a brilliant platform for yourself as well as for others, right? So great.
So next up we have interesting, a debatable topic, by the way. This is a tweet that Chamath did recently, where he said he's going to launch an incubator called 8090. So what does that mean? He says, you know what, SaaS is kind of is a dying industry. He spoke more about it in the All In Pod, the recent episode, so go and watch that probably. So what he says is, hey, tell us what's the SaaS app where you're kind of burning a lot of money. The best example is Slack, which it comes to everyone's mind anyway. So he says, we're going to build, I'm going to I've put up a team, we'll build that for you, which will do 80% coverage on the feature set, and it will be 90% cheaper than what your current SaaS app is.
Okay.
So he asked people to post. So I mean, people started actually posting. I mean, Salesforce was on top, Slack, HubSpot, and yeah, a few other. I mean, even Zoom came there. A lot of these softwares came there. Interestingly, there was an argument, counter argument by a lot of people in Twitter, which also David Sachs who's kind of a SaaS champion, he also kind of had his view. So what the other side of the argument is, hey, yes, you can build with GPT and AI, you can build a software cheaper, definitely, provide cheaper, you can build it faster, but what about the continuous support? What about all the various things that you have to do? So that is where he says it will this model may not work.
I totally agree. See, again, while Shiva, all of us support this, right? That building the applications definitely is. While I again say for enterprise grade, it's still not that easy, right? Because we do that, for a living today, right? You know that there are a lot of nuances that are actually involved when you look at enterprise applications built still, even with the new tech stack that we have. But managing them in the long run, ensuring that they deliver the actual business value and the metrics that we've agreed upon on a continuous basis is very critical. And that requires a skill set in itself, right? Most of the customers that I speak to today, the CIOs especially, right? Most of the conversations go to the LLM ops offering that we give to our CIOs,
Okay.
right? So how do we manage once they've actually gone live, right? In fact, if I'm spending 30 minutes with the CIO, probably every 10 minutes or in every call 10 minutes are how are you going to probably support me after I've gone live, because that's a major concern for them, right? So I think that's where some of these conversations need to probably move towards as well. But
I mean, the other one is, I mean, even 37 Signals, which is a company by the Basecamp founders, the popular authors of this book called Rework, which most of the startup guys would have read anyway. So even they are kind of trying to follow a similar model. They are building a company called Once, under which they build products which replicate SaaS providers. And they ask us, hey, as a customer, you just pay once and use the product. So they are again building a Slack competitor. So 2024 is going to see a lot of lookalike Slack lookalikes coming out at 10% when 90% cheaper products actually on one-time pay. So enterprises who are listening to this, I mean, it's important because the pricing model in SaaS and enterprise software like Oracle, etc., is going to be disrupted a lot. I think companies like AWS are quite safe because they provide infrastructure which you cannot build, which is the actual infrastructure. But SaaS layer, the software layer, is going to get disrupted a lot. Question comes up, right? I mean, are you paying the real value for the software that is on top, or can you get the same software at 10 times cheaper? So Rishabh, that's where, if you see from a Lizer standpoint, the pricing is flat. We are not saying, hey, you pay by the number of users or pay based on data or pay based on, say, the amount of API calls. We are saying it's a flat price. Your business is your business. You can run a million, users, or you can have 10 users, because you are gonna pay that cost, which is pay as you go model, to the cloud provider and to LLMs. So to the core stack, you just pay a flat price, and that's so we are at Lizer. We are doing that already, and we are seeing really good acceptance there. So yeah, that's this
absolutely,
is pretty
and
interesting.
the very rightly that Shiva that you pointed out, the intelligence layer that we are actually providing at Liza, right? And then there's a consumption that actually gets built on top of it, right? So obviously it makes sense for us to probably charge customers more on the value when we're building the intelligence layer, not on the consumption model, because the consumption will start on the top layer above this, right? So that's where so on GoML we're actually charging that ways, right? We either charge on a services based on a consumption model, right? So I agree on that point.
What
All
next?
right. So Microsoft has been on a frenzy, right, since the beginning of this year. Absolutely. I mean, they rebranded as Bing Chat as Copilot. They did not stop there. They then, integrated GPT-4. Then they've now launched, or they launched a mobile application, a dedicated mobile application for Copilot, right, after rebranding Bing Chat. But apparently, there's a report that actually stated that this did not affect the ChatGPT downloads at all, right? So now Microsoft has gone more aggressive, and what they've done is now GPT-4, and very silently, right? So, and I think just probably 24 hours ago they released a blog on this, but very silently they've released, or they've like the Copilot is now integrated or can be leveraged with GPT-4 Turbo as well, right? Now, while obviously, I was going through Reddit chats after this launch and announcement, people are still saying that the quality of outputs that they're getting on Turbo versus what they're getting on Copilot is still way different, right? But this definitely, to certain extent, Shiva
No,
changes the
when you say turbo, you mean GPT is better than Copilot.
Correct, yeah. So GPT, when you access GPT-4 Turbo directly from GPT with the paid subscription versus
Okay.
what you do on Copilot GPT-4 Turbo, the quality of the responses is
Yeah.
still different, right? Now, but see, while obviously quality might differ a bit, right? But Shiva, this definitely gives an alternative to someone who doesn't want to pay the subscription price,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. It's like
Like I
it's like what Gmail did, right? Taking email to common man.
Exactly, right? And then you start, I'm just thinking out loud, right? So what Gmail does is it gives you a basic, when I say basic, which I use a free version of Gmail, by the way, I have not got
Yeah.
storage, right? They give, everyone can use it, right? And then businesses can actually buy the premium version, right? The business suite. I think something similar that Microsoft will start attempting. But what I'm really confused, or probably I'm trying to understand, as probably a lot of other users would be, that are they trying to compete with ChatGPT, which I'm pretty sure they're not trying to do, right? Or are they trying to build a better consumability on ChatGPT through their platform? I think that's one thing that at least I'm not able to understand yet.
My hunch is they are building a Google competitor with Copilot.
Yeah.
And like you just said, right? So customers will sign up for Copilot, they use it for free, and they'll slowly start buying premium services, and then you slowly convert them to your enterprise services. So what happens if you're an enterprise? Your employee in an enterprise will have a seamless transition between personal life and enterprise life. They use Microsoft Copilot for personal things. They use the enterprise Copilot for enterprise things. So there is no difference in experience. Otherwise, you'll use ChatGPT or Google Bard, etc., and then come back and use a different technology. Like we used to struggle using Gmail locally and then using Outlook in the
Oh,
office,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So my hunch is that the Microsoft is trying to copy the Google model, but this time instead of doing the Outlook.com, which never picked, they are probably taking the Copilot route. It's my hunch. Let's see what happens.
See, Shiva, this I will probably go back to the starting of last year when there was a code red alerted in Google, right? That the search engine is dead.
Yeah.
Will we ever have this? Bing will now take over when they integrated GPT with Bing Chat, right? None of that has come true yet, right? And GPT and Google doesn't even have like a. I mean, they have Gemini, but nothing that competes very well with GPT at this point, right? So I
No,
think
I think the one who's kind of competing Google more than ChatGPT is Perplexity now,
yeah, it's just correct.
right?
It's more
So
about usability, I would say, right, Shiva? Uh, and that's where I'm again just thinking out loud, right? Is like Microsoft has the O365, which is one of their, like, probably no one can compete in that space at this point with Microsoft, right? So the strategy that they're taking up with Microsoft 365 Copilot, and by the way, Turbo is now available on Copilot Pro as well on the 365 side, right? That's a subscription-based model, right? Versus what they're doing with Bing Chat, I think business wise they'd be concentrating more over there because the penetration and the distribution is much better over there than what's happening on the GPT side. Well, obviously that's a good strategy, but I really don't think so that challenging the status quo of Google is anywhere in the picture yet.
no, but if Microsoft is really serious about Copilot, they should market the heck out of it for the next 3 4 years. If you ask me, I mean because Microsoft has never been great in that game. They should just launch a massive campaign, put $1 billion, take it out to everywhere. I mean, every airport, every train station. Just you should just they should every billboard in a big city, even in a tier 2 city, should be just Copilot. I mean, they should make it really, really seriously this time if they really want to make a dent. Uh, yeah,
I
that's
I would again say consumability and distribution would play a bigger role over here. Like some of these restraint constraints that they still have, right? Shiva? Like Copilot GPT-4 Turbo is only available on Microsoft Edge. Now, honestly speaking, how many users use Microsoft Edge today? Right?
no. They should launch a mobile app. I mean,
They
they
already
have the
did. So they
Copilot.
have a yeah. So earlier this year they did launch a Copilot app as well, right? But the
Yeah,
adoption, what is the adoption of Copilot app? GPT still dominates that space, right, from mobile
that's
apps.
exactly what I'm talking about, right? So while GPT is trying to invest that money into hardware, the data center, Microsoft take that money and put that in marketing. Have billboards. Have take the Copilot to literally everyone around. I mean, I remember a few years back when I landed in San Francisco airport, I saw Notion, which is the content CMS company, right? They had Notion uh, throughout San Francisco airport. And when I went out to the from the airport to the city, I just saw Notion billboards again and again. Very similar to what housing.com guys did in India a few years
Yes.
back. You remember? I
Yes.
mean, I
Correct.
think they blew $120 million in a year just buying billboards and advertisements. So Microsoft has to do something like that with Copilot if people are to kind of latch onto it. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, you're a big company. If you're taking a bet, take the bet all the way. Actually,
Agreed, Shiva. OOH is one of the best places to get the user
yeah.
mindset. But yep. All right, from Microsoft to Google, as we were just discussing. So, although this is more of just an update, Shiva, and how it actually plans out, we'll have to see. So, what Google obviously has been doing is penetrate again the market within the GenAI space, right?
Mm-hmm.
How Gemini performs, we are still waiting for Ultra to come in. But what they've done now is they've released something very specifically for the retailers, right? Primarily, retailers who actually have a web presence. So what they've actually done is they've introduced kind of an agent, right, a GenAI agent, which can be deployed on the website of retailers today, and they can actually be utilized for retail specific use cases like probably Q&A on retail, fulfillment on retail,
Oh,
supply chain on retail, and so on, right? Obviously retail every industry has their own pace of picking up technology, and I think BFSI has always been that harbinger of technology, right? But I was just going through this report, Shiva, which now puts retail, when it comes to generative AI, retail and supply chain probably at the cusp of it, right? Where they're actually using the maximum set of use cases that have been successfully built yet. Look at a lot of announcements that are being made across, again, going through the CAS recording this year. L'Oreal took the center stage in bringing up along with BCG, how they're actually building the whole makeup space, right? Like today, and what they launched with BCG primarily is that users can actually go lead specifically in the female segment. Female or women can actually go and try out all the products in a virtual environment, right? Which they've actually built on top of, right? So retail is coming up with a lot of use cases. So let's see how this gets utilized, but definitely a very good update to look
no,
out for.
it's a smart move because AWS is not heavy in retail, especially with the big retailers. Azure is quite heavy, so Google is taking a bet here, and we know, Rishabh, we've been seeing that retail is definitely a very fantastic place to adopt Gen AI because the interactions are very high. So hopefully it works out.
Absolutely. Another big update, right, Shivan, I think you were just mentioning this, right, that when people start adopting to some things, right, can we probably create package pricing solutions around it to increase the adoption, right? So that's what GPT has just done. So again, in a
Okay.
very low based announcement, so they have a ChatGPT enterprise version, right, which enterprises can leverage to build, models which are much more secure, much more compliant, and so on and so forth, right, which came in the second half of last year. Now, obviously, while ChatGPT Enterprise is getting adopted, one of the problems that enterprises were facing, that for every user they had to buy a purchase a separate license, right? Which was, I think,
Got it.
around $80, if I'm not wrong. What they've done now is for two things, right? So one is to increase collaboration, and obviously to then bundle some of these management overheads. They've released something called as ChatGPT Teams,
Got it.
right? Features wise, obviously, it brings everything that you were getting on the ChatGPT Enterprise version. What it
Okay.
actually entails is that for companies which and one ChatGPT Teams license can cover up to 149 team members in one go, right? And if you actually buy licenses on a annual basis, you end up paying only $25 per month per user. in contrast to that $40 number that you have for ChatGPT Enterprise, right? So two things that they're trying to solve. One obviously is how do they increase the collaboration, right, between the teams, and number two, how can all these overheads can be managed? Like you have just one subscription running, lesser costs and so on and so forth, right? So again, how this gets adopted, we'll have to see, but this is more focused towards how mid-size and SMEs can actually leverage this in contrast to the enterprise customers.
No, this is fantastic. I'm just looking at it. We should buy this for our companies.
That correct.
We should buy a few licenses for our companies, isn't it?
Exactly, Shiva. That's what again for companies like ours, especially, right? Especially on the Liza side, since we are building a lot of these SDKs on GPT.
Yeah.
So keeping costs aside and overhead aside, right? The whole collaboration piece, like instead of managing these licenses separately and then each of these guys build their own versions, we have these teams where they can actually just collab. Like one person creating a custom GPT, right, or integrating in the in the SDK, can actually just collaborate with the other developer, just hand it over and he can take it from there. Right? So whole team's collaboration definitely would be very helpful over here. I think
it's like $30 per month.
If you pay monthly, but if you pay annually, then it's $25, which is almost a $15 per month per user reduction, right? From enterprise perspective.
So it brings collaboration. Yeah, collaboration is. I mean, I remember a lot of YC companies building this actually as an app, as a collaboration app, saying, "Hey, yeah, teams can use GPT together."
Yeah,
it is. I mean, super crazy. I mean,
collaboration has always been one of those problems which is solved, but is yet not solved.
No, right? How is YC not looking into this? I mean, how is YC missing this? I mean, isn't it obvious that GPT will launch this?
Absolutely, and you just mentioned Slack, and I know all of us are fans of Slack, but Slack was never meant to do what it is doing right now. It was an internal project, right? And then they spun it out as a separate company, right? So that's why I always say collaboration is one problem that is solved but is not yet solved, right? So good step. All right. So next update that I have for our viewers, very interesting update, right? And I enjoy reading in this space specifically because I think in one of these podcasts when you were speaking, right, whether how close we are to AGI, right, or how close or how dangerous AI is going to be in the future. And one of the comments that I had mentioned is that I am not that fearful about it because when we say that these the machines are going to be dangerous for us, right, and not in terms of taking our jobs but otherwise also going rogue, is because we claim to understand the human brain very well. Right? We claim that we understand the human brain very well. But another, research published by Oxford researchers now, which is a good perspective now for our, neural networks. So what happens today, Shiva, is that all our neural networks primarily are a propagating network, right? So what happens is you've got weights attached to a certain set of a layer, right? Then probably those weights get adjusted, then they move to the next layer, and so on and so forth. The final outcome is a result of all these, the hops in the neurons, right? So the final outcome or the output that the neural network gives you is primarily a combination of everything, and then you reach the end state, right? None of, or probably the outcome just gets influenced from these layers, right? It doesn't take any of these stabilized outputs.
Okay.
How human brain works is human brain doesn't work. So it's not like what I understand is not the final state, right? So just to give you an example, right? You come or you want to make tea, right? I'm giving a very simplistic example, but as a human, you want to make tea, right? Now, generally, what you look for, I'll speak about myself, right? So I look for tulsi, that's something equivalent to basil that we use in India. I look for tea powder, right? Tea leaves. I look for milk, and I look for water, and I look for gas, right?
Okay.
A stove burner, right? Now let's assume, right? I don't have basil today, right? I will still go ahead and make tea because my state, my brain still has reached an adjusted or an intermediate state where I understand, okay, these are the ingredients I need for the tea, right? Okay. I will still go ahead and make tea. But in a neural network, when I've given all these as inputs, because these were inputs that have come, right, to reach the final state. The moment one ingredient is gone, the neural network will decipher that tea cannot be made, right? Why that happens is, Shiva, because our brain, or probably human neurons, right? How they or our neurons in our brain, how they do is at every stage or every step of input, they reach a stable state before they move to the next one, right? So that stable state is fed into our brain, right? Which we actually refer to as prospective configuration, right? That's what Oxford has mentioned, right? Now just imagine if we can build the same type of logic in our neural networks, that even before reaching the output, they have a lot of these stable states, right? So if the output is not reached, you still have one of these stable states to fall back upon and make a decision, right? So that's what they've just found out, and they're trying to simulate that into AI systems. So again, very evolving space. How it actually gets
So what
implemented.
they're recommending is an altogether AI hardware itself.
Exactly.
They're saying we need to rethink from a hardware standpoint, not just the software layer on top, not just your GPUs and the CUDA that we currently use. We need to go back all the way to the drawing board.
Exactly, right. But just imagine the possibilities, right? Now you just like with a set of inputs, you just don't have one output, right? You have a set of stable outputs that the model can actually fall back upon and then make decisions, right? Because decide the next steps. So yeah, interesting space to look out for.
And a similar news, since we are speaking about the models, I'll probably jump to the RLHF model. So there is something called direct preference optimization, which has been is a paper that has been released. Andrew Ng, the very popular ML practitioner, also kind of tweeted about this, and he felt like giving a standing ovation to the paper after he read the paper. That's when that's what caught my eye, and I started reading about it. It's an interesting concept. So what they're saying is RLHF, which stands for Reinforced Learning Human Feedback, is an older model of giving feedback to a training model and improving. They're introducing a new model in this paper called direct preference optimization. So what they mean by that is the way to identify and give a reward function. Why can't LLM do it on its own? So instead of so LLMs are now innately capable of figuring out a lot of reasoning aspects. So they're saying LLM will reason out and it will identify a specific reward function, and it will do a lot of permutation on its own to do this. But it will identify the reward function and it will reward it, and it will improve the optimization, sorry, the LLM performance actually. So this model is what DPO primarily is on a high level. I would recommend viewers, listeners to go and read more about it. It is just a paper, so please understand, paper is always just a theory, but it's an interesting theory. RLHF also started as a theory actually. So,
Yep.
but the reason why this is getting a lot of traction is you don't need hard-coded reward models. This is very dynamic in nature. You don't need the previous existing reward models that we currently use in recommendation engines, etc. So, because each business problem and a solution combination will have its own nuances of feedbacks, and that's why the DPO model will come up with its own reward model for each and every problem statement and use case, and that's why DPO is shows a lot of promise. So yeah, I would say this if it works really well, it might change the way we look at again towards the AGI aspect, right? Because this also feeds into the AGI side, but more at the software layer, more at the feedback layer. If not AGI, it'll at least make the existing AI systems even more smarter, because your feedback quality will be a lot higher, your reward system will be a lot higher, and so that's the whole point of DPO. Consider like this. We have this reservation based system for admissions. What if we take the reservation system out and bring a merit based system? That's what the DPO and RLHF is. RLHF is archaic standards kind of considerably in this model, in this field, where it's more of a reservation based system. Exactly. Wherein DPO is more like the metrics based system, where the best person gets the reward, and then that model keeps kind of going again and again. So
absolutely. No, this is again, as Shiva mentioned, it's still a paper, but again, everything starts from a research paper and using transformer models, right? So, Absolutely, a brilliant update, Shiva. Because two problems that we've always seen, like when we're implementing. One, obviously, is how do you control the accuracy and hallucinations of these models, and that actually comes to the second problem, which is how do you actually evaluate, right? In fact, just one use case that we were discussing with a customer last week, right, where they want to do a synthetic data generation, right, for one of the financial services use cases, which is a very big use case that I've come across in the enterprise world, right? But then one thing obviously comes in that once you've generated the data, now how do you evaluate the outcome of this data? Right now, for evaluation of the outcome of this data, you need good data, and that cannot be synthetic. That needs to be actual production data, right? So, I think the better build evaluation or metrics of these models, right? Apart from the RLHF and the other metrics that we have, I think better for the industry.
Okay. Next update is this Hugging Face manages a LLM benchmarking scoring system, the ELO scoring system. It just caught my eye, and I'll probably take only 10 seconds on this. Please look at the charts and look at where Mistral Medium is. It is, look at the scores. It is lot closer to GPT-4. So, I mean, enterprise CIOs, head of generative AI within large companies, or even startups who want to build absolute private models or private GenAI apps, Mistral Medium is the key. Yep. Mistral is fantastic. Mistral Medium in particular, right? It's kind of a secret. So think about it. Mistral Medium is fantastic. Mistral 8 into 7B is also really good. If you want more of a safer model, go for Phi 2.7. If you want even smaller model, which is even more safer, go for the BERT 1 billion model. So, I mean, today in all my conversations to enterprise customers, these are the only 4 models that I speak about from Lizer, because Lizer agent SDKs are private in nature. You can zip up your firewall, you can close all your ports, you can replicate all the SaaS, I mean, fantastic SaaS capabilities locally. Imagine you can build a local Perplexity for yourself, for your company, for your team with Lizer SDK. But the big question that they ask is, fine, I don't have to use a third-party API for re-ranking or for vector database or for embedding. You bring everything in-house. I don't have to use a third-party API for RAG. Okay, but what about LLMs? I mean, I still have to use GPT-4. Exactly. So to them, my answer is this: if you need knowledge, I mean, bank as well. So Mistral Medium. If you need only the language capabilities, go for Phi 2.7. So yeah, that's my point I want to highlight here. It's a silent kind of not a hidden secret anymore in the startup world, but GenAI companies, I mean, GenAI customers in large enterprises, please look at these models and let us know. We can come in and help, but this is just this is something that you should leverage right away.
Mixture Suite is already being labeled as one of the best, not one of the best, the best open source model, in the market today, Shiva. And then again, as you mentioned, now the world is slowly moving towards small language models as well. So I think that's where Phi and all come into picture. But Mixture definitely is a game changer.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping Llama 3, which is planned for Q2 or Q3, I believe. So I think Q2 is Llama 3 and Q3 is GPT-5 for 2024. So I really hope Llama 3 kind of, I mean, they have a, Mistral is actually giving them headaches. So interestingly, Sam Altman, the last interview with Bill Gates, I don't know if you watched it. Did you watch it? The one with Bill Gates?
I haven't.
Go and do it. It's a 30-minute thing.
Okay.
So Bill Gates asks Sam, are you disturbed by competitors? I mean, he says, yes, I'm frustrated. I mean, it's painful to have competitors kind of try and beat you every time. So, and we've seen that as in our things as well. So now Meta's Llama has a very worthy competitor with Mistral coming in. So Llama initially it all started as a fun experiment by Meta folks, but now we will know this year whether they are really in the race or they just wanted to disturb the ecosystem by launching the open source last year. So we'll know this year actually.
Again, as I say, right, the GPT, as all of us know, GPT has a first mover advantage, but now they're seeing a lot of challenges in the market. Right?
Yeah.
Same was with Llama 2. They had a first mover advantage in the opens. While I still consider Llama 2 is not pure open source, right? But yeah, in the open source market, they were the harbingers.
Yeah, they don't give the weights and more exactly.
They don't, and plus you cannot utilize it for commercial purposes without getting the license, right? So, but now they're seeing a lot of challenges, especially with the likes of Mixtral and so on coming in, right? So yeah, I definitely
no Llama 2 you can use for commercial purpose. So, only companies with more than 700 million active users cannot use, which is like
anyhow.
So the last topic, bit technical, but for developers, Gen AI practitioners, this might building applications in the enterprise space. This would be essential. This is a 1 hour long video, a fantastic tutorial by Greg Camrad. Greg has been churning out some super awesome, I would say, learning material in the Gen AI space with fiddling around a lot of technologies and frameworks. So here in this video, he covers about the text splitting models.
Okay.
And you may ask, okay, why is it in the Gen AI? Even Rishabh, even you might be wondering, why is it in the Gen AI podcast? Like, this is like a developer stuff. The reason I'm bringing this is last week we had an incident where the chatbot performance was not up to the mark. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting with the customer, we were brainstorming with the customer to kind of figure out why. And you know where it took us? It took us all the way to the source document. So the source document was not processed properly, because of which the problem just ran down all the way down the stream to the user experience. So, and we realized that we need to split the document in a much better way. We need to try few other models, few different splitting techniques, so that our embedding works really well, our vectorization works really well, and only then our retrieval also will work really well. This is like a proper waterfall model. So hence I'm bringing this to everyone's notice that even if you have a really cool, good chatbot, go ahead, or chatbot or RAG engine, whatever you have, go and revisit the way you are processing your input data. And that's where this 5 levels of text splitting makes a fantastic, I would say, platform for you to understand what might suit you. My favorite is the recursive text splitting, which is still kind of a silver bullet which can solve all the problems, but it is changing. I mean, the market is changing. You have Doc LLM, which we covered in one of our earlier episodes that JP Morgan released, which is fantastic. It's an LLM. It's an LLM which is solving the problem, not at the text, not at the PDF parser level. But if you are looking at data parsing, Unstructured has a fantastic library that you could use for intelligent parsing. Our open source favorites like LangChain and Llama Index also have some really good frameworks that you could use. At Lizer, obviously, we have written our own intelligent parser, which is meeting all our enterprise customer needs actually. So yes, builders, practitioners, please go and understand. Even non-builders should look at it, because you are the ones who are going to be working on the data preparation side. So if you can prepare the data really, really well, your outcome would be far, far better. So that's from a personal learning it comes. So hence I wanted to cover this.
And, this is a great update, Shiva. I mean, obviously we've been doing document chunking in a lot of our use cases, right? But a better or a more logical chunking process obviously brings the context or the accuracy of your system, up a notch. Because we do a lot of, like you already know, right? We do a lot of document processing for our clients. So this definitely is a good update. I'd want our team to try it out, right, from the accuracy perspective.
We should try, and we should probably share our own experience as well, our own results as well on WhatsApp. So yeah, that pretty much brings an end to our episode 8 of the GenAI CIO podcast. I know we are probably a day or two late this time. We'll try and make it up, but we are still keeping our promise, one episode a week actually.
Absolutely. No, we'll definitely ensure that you get, I think, as Shiva, you mentioned, this episode was a bit cursed We had made multiple roadblocks, right? But eventually, yeah, we are delivering this episode. We'll
I
get
am
to
not to be blamed. Rishabh is to be blamed. He missed the Sunday. We had a Sunday recording session which he missed. I cannot be blamed.
I
Why did we miss
apologize.
Friday recording? What was the reason?
We we were in a major client escalation, Shiva, if you remember, till
Yeah,
almost 1 a.m. my time, 2:30 your time, right? So,
yeah.
and then
No, okay.
after 1 a.m. I just could not remember what was being on the podcast. I
Yeah,
was
no,
busy.
no. To the audience, this is the issue that we had where we had to go and relook at our source data. This is exactly what happened on Friday.
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
exactly. Yes, yes.
And we had to work on Saturdays and Sundays and eventually realized that it's the source data. Now the issue is fixed. I'm also going to be writing a blog post around it, an interesting one. But yeah, that's our commitment to our customer anyway. So see you
Absolutely.
next week then.
Brilliant. Thanks, everyone. Bye
Take
bye.
care. Bye.